I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here with best-selling author and story doula, Laurie Morin, to talk about her article in the September-October issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Laurie, good morning, and thank you for being with me.
Good morning, Ginny. It's nice to be here.
Before we dive into your topic, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a retired law professor, been retired 5 years now. I guess I could stop saying that. Um,
That's
and when
not
I
very
retired,
long, really. I thought it was longer than that. Yeah.
yeah, no, 5 years. So when I retired and COVID hit, I decided to spend my time doing some writing. And it reminded me that as a child, I always wanted to grow up and be an author. So that's what I do now, pretty much full time.
Mhm.
I do teach writing. I'm directing a writing group that I'll tell you about later for Brave Healers Publications.
Mhm.
And I like to help women, especially who are trying to write their life stories, especially when, you know, we've all had so much life experience,
Yeah.
and a lot of times we don't even know where to start. There's just so much you could write about. So I like to help people narrow down their ideas and come up with a concrete plan to write a book or a chapter in a book or even a blog post.
Mhm. Well, we're going to hear more about your writing process because the title of your article is How to Nurture Your Dreams. And you've had a few articles in On Purpose Woman magazine, maybe more than a few, and they typically come from your newsletter. I'll get your newsletter, I'll read it,
Mhm.
I'll go, oh, I really like that. I think our readers would like that. Can I use it, please? And you always say yes, so thank you for saying yes. And you start out in your article by asking, do you ever feel stuck in an uninspired rut, unable to gain traction on a dream project? I've been there and I know how frustrating it can be. And you
Mhm.
share your past experiences with being on an academic calendar. And you already told us that you were a law professor. So did you have the
Right.
summers off pretty much, or at least
Right.
okay?
Yes, I had summers off, and
Mhm.
I always had big plans for the summer because part of what you have to do as a law professor is write these scholarly articles.
Ah,
So I always thought, summer, I'll write an article this summer that I won't have to worry about it the rest of the year.
you mean like a big article,
A big
like
article,
that
yeah,
being published kind of article, right?
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Um, and somehow it never happened, and I was always frustrated by it. And it really wasn't until I retired and started writing full time that I realized that what was happening during the summer was a germination process.
Mm,
That you can't just go from like a hectic 60-hour a week work schedule to sit down and say, I'm going to write now,
yeah.
you know? So you
But you
have to
kind of
come
beat
up with the
yourself up
idea.
for it, though, didn't you? You kind of
Oh,
felt there was
yeah,
something wrong that you weren't like, jumping right in and getting that writing done.
absolutely. And I think that's what we do as women.
Mhm.
We have such high expectations of ourselves,
Oh,
and
yeah.
sometimes they're unrealistic.
Okay. So did you really, you only started writing like personal stuff in the last 5 years since you left? So did you ever want to do that? I think I'm
I
going to,
always
pardon me.
wanted to do it.
Sorry.
And I shouldn't say totally that I just started because my very first law review article was actually a personal piece.
Hmm.
I wrote about how I was teaching law students to practice law as right livelihood. And my point in the article was that law is a calling, not just a profession,
Wow.
and that you have to have a bigger purpose behind practicing law. So
And
that
they
was pretty
published that.
personal.
They published
They
that.
published it.
That was pretty radical, wasn't it?
I know. And what's really funny about that is, they keep track of statistics on all these things.
Mhm.
That is the most cited law review article I ever wrote. I still get people referring to it
Wow. I
because it was
understand
kind
why.
of a radical idea.
Yeah. And people resonated with it and they weren't being taught
Mhm.
that in law school,
Exactly.
right?
No,
Maybe
most
by you,
people didn't.
except by you, right?
Right, right.
So you used to think that time was wasted when you just didn't
Hmm.
jump right in and get working. I also wonder if you were really excited about what you had to write about. Did it really jazz you? Did you love writing, or was that part of it, or was that not part of it?
Hmm. I think that was a little part of it. So I do have this very logical, linear side of my brain,
Hmm.
and it was intrigued by legal topics, by trying to figure things out and come up with solutions.
Yeah.
So I could get jazzed by an idea,
Okay.
but then sitting down to write it was kind of boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you write in the article that, and you touched on it already, that, once you started writing personally all the time,
Hmm.
that you realized that that germination process, that was a germination process. It wasn't necessarily procrastinating or I'm just not doing what I should be doing. I'm wasting my
Right.
time. So
Right.
talk more about that process and why you think it's so important, and like how we can use it.
Okay. Well, I think the easiest way to talk about it is to give you my most recent example. There's
Yes.
tons of examples, but I've been working on a book, and it's about the 70s. I was in college in the 70s and had a lot of things I thought were interesting that would make a good memoir. So I started writing it as a memoir. And I got about 6 chapters written, and it just wasn't gelling. And I had to take a time out, and I sat back and thought, why isn't this story working for me? And I realized that although my personal experience was interesting, I wanted to infuse more history into it
Hmm.
and more events that I actually didn't experience.
Okay.
So I decided I needed to make it into a novel. But that process of sitting back, it was like 3 months that I did not write a word on it
Hmm.
because I was trying to figure out, what I needed to do to make this start working for me again.
Yeah. That must be a big, because you have to start from, granted, you've got a lot of it written, but you
Hmm.
still have to start from page one again, right?
Oh, yes,
Just
yes. And
weave and, dodge and weave. And is it more of a,
exactly.
is it more of a historical type novel, do you think? Or, yeah,
It
it's
is
not, it's
historical.
mostly
So it
nonfiction, right?
starts with Hillary Clinton's bid for presidency,
Okay.
because what I was doing was comparing the early 2000s to the 1970s. I saw a lot of parallels between those two.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of history. It goes back into the history about Vietnam, the things that I was involved in, as well as recent history.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of research, but that wasn't what was holding me up. What was holding me up was trying to figure out, how to infuse some life into this thing.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And you also, let's see, let me find my note here. Because you write that you found that dedication and self-motivation alone was just not enough to stay
Right,
committed to your writing. You
right.
discovered something else that works for you, and it's actually a brilliant strategy, I think. Talk about that.
Let me see if I know what you're talking about. Is it the accountability piece?
The accountability piece,
Right,
the Substack, yes.
right, right, right. Yeah, so I think you have to allow things to germinate, but then there comes a point in a project when you just get stalled because you're tired or you're
Mhm.
bored or you don't have the oomph to keep going. And I knew that what worked for me in the past in my professional life was I had to do it. I was accountable to students, I was accountable to other faculty members. So I had to do it. And I thought, well, what would make me have to actually write this novel? Because it's daunting. It's going to be like 33 chapters of 3,000 words each. It's long.
Oh, okay.
Um,
But you really want to get it out there too. So
I
that,
want to get it
yeah,
out now,
yeah,
especially with Kamala Harris running. I
yeah,
have to get it out
yeah.
there. So I decided that I needed to build in accountability. And one way to do that is with a writers group.
Mhm.
And I have on other projects had writing buddies who, we committed to each other and we report in every week. But I didn't have anybody this time. So I decided that I would try to get subscribers to my Substack and tell them that I would come out with a chapter at least every couple of weeks that they could preview. So it's kind of like a serialized novel at this
Mhm.
point. Um, and that has worked for me because I feel like, well, I can go maybe 3 weeks, but I can't go much longer than that without putting something out.
Yeah.
So,
And it is interesting that, it's kind of human nature, I guess we could say, that we will keep our commitments to other people much
exactly.
easier than we will to ourselves.
Right, right.
And I used to think it was all about, oh, I don't want to look bad, but it's not really that. It's we made a commitment, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And I read a story many years ago that actually it was when I worked for the Transformational Seminar Company. We used this as an example of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about two women who had committed to working out every so many days a week. And they
Mm-hmm.
did it together and they swapped gym bags so that if one woman didn't show up, the other woman couldn't work out.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And
I
I
love
thought
it.
that is a brilliant strategy.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all it takes to actually start to be more self-accountable.
Yes.
I bet once you get into the flow, or once you got into the flow of this, you're more energized about doing it. But yet there's
Hmm.
still that little thing when you're tired or when you've got too much on your plate that you go, I really don't want them to lose interest in what's going on over here. So
Exactly.
let me get this
Exactly.
out. And
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad I'm here with you now because I really meant to sign up for that because I'm so curious. So I'm going to do that today. We're going to tell other people how they can also be part of that. But explain what Substack is because I don't think everybody knows.
Substack is kind of like well, it is an online writing community for writers, but it's also very similar to an online magazine.
Okay.
So you can kind of scroll through. When you sign up, they ask you what your interests are, and then they recommend writers to you who write in that field or that genre.
Mhm.
So you can sign up for people's free publications. And then there's a lot of people who also have paid publications, actually like paid magazine
Mhm.
subscriptions on Substack.
Is it similar to Medium?
It's similar to Medium, I would say, except, well, at least I think, a little less commercialized.
Okay.
And what Medium has done, and it was a good strategy for them to grow, is they've started their own online publications.
Mm.
But Substack, it's still individual writers who are reaching out to cultivate their own audiences.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So how's that been going then? Get into a little bit more about where you are with the book and you have any projected end date?
Well, um, I didn't think I had an end date until Kamala Harris entered the election. And now I feel like if I don't get this book out by the end of the year, it's going to be irrelevant
Mm.
because a lot of it does center around um, how, in my mind, um, the Hillary's failed attempt at the presidency and Donald Trump's election was really a part of the um, reemergence of patriarchy
Mm.
and kind of set us back from a lot of the gains we had made that we had fought for in the 70s and beyond, including reproductive rights as an obvious example. So I thought it was going to be a dystopian novel because it was going to end with,
Don't we wish?
yeah, right, right. Um,
Wow. Just
so
fantasy
now,
here, right?
exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
now I don't know what's going to happen, but
Mhm.
whatever it is, um, it definitely will have a bearing on how the book ends. I mean,
Right.
I know how the book is ending for these characters,
Right.
but I think there's going to have to be an epilogue with current history. So,
Mhm.
yeah. My self-imposed deadline is the end of this year.
Very exciting and I
Mhm.
guess a bit daunting.
It is very daunting.
because you can't really finish it until, a certain
Ex-
date. And then
Exactly.
yeah. Oh, well, I'm
Exactly.
very excited for you,
Mm.
Laurie. I think it's you seem like the perfect person to write it. Plus, you're an excellent writer and you had some great experiences that
I,
you and I
yeah,
have compared some of our college experiences in the late 60s, early 70s.
yeah.
I was late 60s. I think you were early 70s, right?
Early 70s. Yeah.
And some of that. So we're on the same page with a lot of that. So I'm
Hmm.
really excited. I'm going to go over there and catch up and start reading your stuff.
It's a little scary writing about political things because I've
Yeah.
always avoided it in my writing. But it was calling me to write,
Hmm.
so I'm doing it.
Yeah. It takes a certain amount of courage these days to put things out there. I don't do a lot of political like posting on Facebook. I do
Hmm.
put things that I think are important, but I
Yeah.
don't attack or disparage or
No,
don't
no.
and I don't give light to anything that I think is dark. I don't
Right.
I don't share it because if I do that, I get more of that. And
Exactly.
my Facebook feed is actually quite clean. I don't get a lot
Hmm.
of negative stuff. But sometimes, okay, I have to say this today,
Right, right, right.
and but yeah,
Yeah.
it's important and it's really needed. So what would you say to a woman who is watching or reading your article
Hmm.
who is thinking, I know you can help them, so we'll talk about how they'll get in touch with you in a little bit, but they've either started, they're stalled
Hmm.
out,
Hmm.
or they're just haven't even gotten started yet. How might they use a different type of accountability? Because not everybody's going to be in a public forum like you are, using
Right.
the benefits of your readers. What were some ideas you have for how they get started and continue going?
I think the first way that I got started was by joining writers groups. And there are a lot of free ones online where you just do co-writing.
Mhm.
So, you sit down and maybe there's a writing prompt and you all write together. And it's very non-threatening. And yet it encourages you to keep writing.
Mhm.
And I think that works up till a certain point in your writing, until you begin to need some feedback on your ideas.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're in your head. It's kind of like being in your own imaginary world. And it's hard to know whether what you say is going to resonate with other people
Right.
until you get the courage to put it out there. So the next thing I did was I joined several kind of low cost writing classes, workshops, one time workshops,
Hmm.
short classes, where we would get a little instruction, but also get a little feedback. And that helped to give me confidence. And then after that, I think at some point you do have to get into more serious writing groups where
Hmm.
there's actual critique and people are reading your work. And what I did, the way I wrote my first book was, I don't know how I got this idea, but I said, I'm going to put together a Facebook group and I'm going to ask people if they want to be my readers.
Oh, nice.
And I got about 12 people, friends,
Hmm.
nobody threatening. And I would send them things and we'd communicate on the Facebook group. And it was really interesting because that process made me realize that I wanted to include other women's voices in my book.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of those women also became women I interviewed for the book. But it was a very non-threatening, low-key way of getting other people involved in my writing.
I love that idea. And it also they were like your silent, in a way, accountability partners. They weren't
Exactly.
asking you probably, what do you have for us, Laurie? But you knew that
Right.
they had given you their attention by coming into your group and saying yes. So you
Right.
wanted to fulfill your end of the deal as well. So I love that idea a lot, a lot. And just go back to the writing, the general type of writing groups. You typically, I mean, you can share if you want to, you can share your writing, but there's no have tos, right? In just a
Right.
regular writing group. Yeah.
Um, Not in a regular writing group.
Yeah.
If you take some of the more serious critique groups, yes,
Mhm.
you're
Yeah, that's
expected to
right.
share.
Yeah.
Um, and I find that, when you get to the point where you really want feedback, you want to be in a group where you submit something in advance
Okay.
so people have a chance to read it and then give you their feedback.
Mhm.
A lot of writing groups, you can volunteer to read something and you get immediate feedback, but people haven't had a chance to think about it. So that's one level,
Okay.
but there's another level kind of
Yeah.
beyond that. Yeah.
But then for a first-time writer especially, it's really good to just get that muscle built of going in silence, writing for an hour or whatever, and maybe
Exactly.
sharing a little bit or just sharing how you're feeling or something like that at the end, checking in and
Exactly.
all that. And but then,
Hmm.
yeah, as you move up, or if you've written a book before, you might want to start at a different level for the second book, right?
Right, right. Or start at that level, but then eventually segue into
Yeah.
something else.
Maybe a little quicker this time.
Mhm. And
You
I know you
mentioned,
you have some members who lead those kinds of writing groups.
I do,
So
yes, yes,
maybe we can put them after this is recorded, put it in the chat.
I
I know
will.
Gina Edwards does a
Mhm.
great writing group. I think Andrea Hyland may do one.
She does one as part of her incubator,
Oh, right, as
and I
part
can
of
put
her
the link into
incubator.
that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And thank you for mentioning that. And I think that's also says a lot about you that you're, because you also run a writing group and you run one for
Hmm.
Brave Healer Productions. Say a little bit about that.
So I don't know if people are familiar with Brave Healers Productions. It's a wonderful publication that publishes collaborative books. And I actually really recommend being in a collaborative book as a way to break into writing. Because, I was in yours was the first one I did with Brave Healers.
Okay. I had it out the other day. It's
Yes.
here somewhere, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Um, Everybody should look it up because it's a really fabulous collaborative book for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And what you do when you participate in one of these is you write a short chapter with your personal story and then tips or tools or strategies for other people. Um, and if you get a book like this that has 20 some odd chapters, you're definitely going to find something that helps you.
Hmm.
So I love being a part of those. I've been in three others with Laura, and I just signed up for another one
Wow.
because it's really fun if you're in the middle of a big project to take time out and say, what can I say that will help people in just a short time that
Mm.
I can sit down and write and put it out into the world and know that I'm doing some good.
Yeah.
So,
How
um,
can people find out about your writing group? I'll put the link in the chat as well, but not the chat, in the text of the video.
mhm. It is a group on Facebook called the Brave Healers Writers something or other. The Writers Circle is a separate paid group, but there's a free group
Mm-hmm.
um, that I think I have the link to. Let me see if I can.
Or you can give it to me at the end. Why don't you
Okay,
do
I'll
that?
give
Yeah,
it to you at
plug it
the
in.
end.
Yeah, we'll plug it
Yeah,
in. If you're watching
yeah.
this live right now, come back and, by 10 o'clock, I'll have everything up.
Okay,
And the,
sounds
the
good.
paid group, do you also run the paid group?
I also run
I
the
thought you
paid
did.
group.
Yeah, yeah.
So the paid group is kind of a hybrid. We do co-writing some of the time.
Hmm.
We have guest instructors, so there's actually sessions on how to write a good blog post. We just did a fabulous one on how to write an amazing children's book.
Mm.
And I thought, I don't have children. I'm not going to write a children's book. I got so excited about it. I want to write a children's book now.
I don't think you
It
have to have
was
children to write a good children's book.
no,
Yeah,
it was really fun.
yeah.
So we do instruction, and we're also building in feedback where you can submit some work and get feedback on it.
Okay. So
So
you're doing all kinds of great stuff. Are. Tell everybody your website is what?
my website is just my name,
And
lauriemorin.com.
what
And
can
there
people
you'll
find there? Yeah, go ahead.
mostly you'll find my books and my chapters. I've
Mhm.
I've added all my chapters so you can see if there's anything there that you think might help you. The other thing I love about the Brave Healers collaborative books is they're very reasonably priced.
Yeah.
You can get them on Kindle for, I don't know what the full price is, but it's really not very much. And you can always sign up if you get in the free Facebook group. You can sign up to be an advanced reader, and you get a free advanced reader copy, and you get to buy the book for 99 cents.
Yeah.
So, if you're interested at all in either the topics or learning how people go about writing these things, it's an easy entry.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for mentioning all of that. And our book, On Purpose Woman, The Complete Holistic Guide for Spiritual Entrepreneurs, is now, and I don't know that I put this out to everybody, is now on Audible. So
Awesome.
yes, yes.
Hmm.
And that was an interesting process of choosing the right person.
Mhm.
They did auditions, we had like 14 women who auditioned to read this
Oh,
book
wow.
and put it on Audible. And it was an interesting process to choose who I thought was the perfect one to do it. And she
I
was so excited
bet.
about the book that she's been promoting it.
Oh, that's great.
He loved the book. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another thing right there. So check it out on Audible if you like to be read to and hear the great stuff. And tell us a minute before we go about your book, Shiro's Journey, the first book that you wrote.
So the first book that I wrote was part memoir. Well, I've learned that they call them teaching memoirs. So it was part memoir based on my personal experience, but part my thoughts on being a midlife woman, going through the transition to retirement, and figuring out, at least for me, I feel like I spent most of my life living other people's dreams,
Mm.
and figuring out what I really wanted from life was a process. And I thought maybe writing this book could help other women navigate that process.
It is a really great book. I wish I'd thought to I have it in that little basket here by my couch in my
I have it
office.
over there in the bookcase too.
I would have brought it up and showed it, but
Mm.
you tell some great stories and ask some great questions, with great pondering questions in this book. So everyone check out, again, that information will all be there in a few minutes. So check out Laurie's books, her writing classes, you also do writing classes and you take on private clients. Do you coach private clients as well?
I do coach private
Yeah.
clients right now until the end of the year.
For obvious reasons.
Probably not.
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing I love doing the most is I do these VIP days,
Mm.
where somebody comes to me with an idea and we sit down and figure out how to turn it into a book.
Okay, so that's a one and done for that
It's
one process,
right,
right?
right.
Yeah. And if you're watching this too, whether live or on the YouTube channel, go check out the Substack and see if you might want to be a part of reading Laurie's chapters as they come out, especially, I was going to say, especially if you're a child of the 50s, 60s, 70s,
Hmm.
but if you're a child of the 90s, 2000s,
Right,
2010s, because there's so
right,
much history that I
right.
think a lot
Hmm.
of young women still don't quite understand.
Right.
I've seen a lot
And
of things
part of,
popping
yeah,
up. Go ahead.
now part of the thing is I've got two characters, one who grew up in the 70s and the other who grew up in the 90s.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And so the way their lives kind of intersect,
Hmm.
and two very different generations in terms of what we were raised to believe about women,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
but facing the same issues now.
Hmm.
So
I've seen so many posts recently on Facebook about, it wasn't until the 70s that women could get a credit card in their name. No, there
exactly.
are still, women in their 20s and 30s that just don't quite grasp that yet
Yeah,
because it's unthinkable. All
exactly.
this stuff is unthinkable. So thank you for
Exactly.
keeping all this alive and the timeliness. You probably didn't know when you started. Well, of course, you didn't know when you started writing this what was going to be happening
No,
just a few short weeks ago.
no, I had no idea.
Yep. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. And thank you, Laurie. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your heart with us, your brilliance with us in writing and being here with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ginny, and thank you for everything you do too.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you for watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. And for more information on the On Purpose Women Global Community and magazine, check out the link in the text of this video. And again, be sure to check out all that Laurie's up to in the text of this video as well. And for more interviews with amazing women living their lives on purpose, go to our YouTube channel. Some of you are already on our YouTube channel watching this, so just look for some of the other articles, not articles, but interviews. We've got all kinds of things there, from the writers who submit to the magazine to our speakers at our gatherings on Zoom, as well as just straight up interviews that I do with other women. So thanks again.